Hey there, good evening. Welcome to the Paint Party live stream. So glad to have you joining me this evening. It's great to see you. I hope you had a great week here in the United States. I hope you had a good Thanksgiving holiday and are ready to head into December. I'm excited to paint this evening. We're going to start with our series of kind of winter holiday themed paintings this evening, so I'm excited to get that started. I want to show you, I did a little more detail work on the painting we did last week, so I wanted to show that to you real quickly before we get started. This is how it has turned out. I decided to recess the horns of the skull back into the shadows, and I think it really turned out well. Remember, I wanted this to kind of be the focal point of the painting, so I think it turned out really well. Was pleased with how that turned out, so I'm gonna varnish this and then it'll be done. But just wanted you to see, oh, I guess I need to hold it on this side. Wanted you all to see how that turned out. So you can see how that turned out. That is a good one. And as we get started this evening, we're going to do a smaller painting. Let me put up the reference photo. This is what we're going to do. Hey there, Lola. So good to have you. I always know the first one or two people that pop in that you're probably one of those first two, if not the first two. Hey there, Mom and Dad. So good to have you chime in. So we're going to do this this painting this evening with the pine cones and kind of the evergreen. The reason I chose this one is because it's going to be a little more challenging because there's not a lot of difference. And I've painted pine needles before, but I'm not sure exactly how detailed I want to go. But I also want to change from the reference photo a little bit and kind of choose a focal point, because that's something that I really want to develop in my skill as a painter, is to be able to take a reference photo and kind of direct the viewers, or the viewer's eye in the painting. So that's kind of my goal. We tried that new technique last week where we did kind of basically all shades of brown until we really got the painting quite a ways into it. I think we were an hour in. So I'm going to try that again, because I noticed that the paintings that turn out the best often are those paintings where I do something like that. The one months ago that I did of the lion, before I ever left Little Rock, turned out, it was one of my best paintings, but it started because it was just all shades of brown until I really got it refined, and then put in kind of the golds, and that made it come to life. So I want to try that technique again this evening, just to kind of build my experience with the technique, to see what works and what doesn't, and how it works in different situations. So that's what we're going to do tonight. This will be also a little bit of a challenge because there's not so much jumping around we can do. Typically, if it's like a landscape, I'll do, the sky and then the foreground, or I'll do, the background and then the main subject, and I'll bounce back and forth. So this is going to be a little bit more challenging this evening, but let's get jumped in. As you know, if you have attended the live stream before, you can chime in wherever you're watching, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, wherever, and you can comment in the comments and join the conversation. I love when you engage with me as I'm painting. So that said, let's get started. Welcome again, and let's get this painting show on the road. Let me see. I'm kind of moving my microphone around. Let me pull you into the into the canvas a little bit. Maybe I can turn the light a little bit to give you all a better view. Okay. I think what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to take the raw umber and kind of make a mix here. And we'll just kind of start putting some shadows in. As you know, shadows are kind of our first step. So you guys can't see. Let me turn this around so you can see on the palette a little bit easier. There's raw umber. Let's put in some ultramarine blue, which will give us the dark. I don't know if that's even going to help. Bad thing with these cameras, they adjust to the light. So no matter what light I have, they adjust. And both of these are really dark, so it's hard to see. And then I'll put a little white on because we'll probably mix white eventually. Okay. I did kind of pre-treat or tone this canvas. Hey there, Miss Shirley. It was so good to see you this past weekend and spend time with your family. Had a blast playing games. Thanks so much for the invitation. It was a lot of fun. Can't wait to get down to Colorado to visit y'all. So I toned the canvas with just kind of a light burnt umber. That way it's just a very kind of light reddish brown. And then mixing this raw umber with the ultramarine blue will give us kind of a deep brownish gray, almost black color. So we'll use that right now. And this is an 8x10, so it's a tinier canvas than I've used before. But let's just put in, we'll do a full first kind of pass at some shadows. Now this is something we're going to kind of have to, I think what I want is the pine cones and those 3 branches kind of center. I want to make that the focal point of the painting. And then I want to recede the others back into the background. So a lot of this will be in the shadows back in here. I kind of want to create like a triangle almost of the shadow, what's in the shadow. Yes, me too. I was glad to meet Reagan. Can't believe it's been all these years and this is the first time our paths have crossed. Definitely kindred spirits in the regard of our kind of sarcastic wit. I appreciate her sense of humor. Okay, let's see. Now we have kind of a branch and some branches back in here. So we'll just kind of put all this back in shadow. No real detail, just kind of doing a shadowy wash, and if we come in here, then we can start to see, okay, this is going to be our background shadow spots. This is where the main point of view is. So this will be the lightest spot, basically. This will be, there's going to be some shadow in here. Let's bring it up a little bit. So we'll have kind of again, I'm looking for big, kind of big shapes. I'm going to move this. I don't really know what I'm doing, but we'll figure it out as we go, right? That's kind of the challenge as we get in here is going to be putting in the smaller shadows. You got this, Picasso. Thanks, Anthony. I don't know about that, but I appreciate the vote of confidence there. Okay, let's see if we can. Trying to put in the brightest tones here. Interesting idea. Yeah, surely. It's a, I mean, it's a technique I've learned and I'm still learning. I'm not but the key is to put in blocks of values, not specific colors, because if you get the values right, putting the colors in then in layers is much easier, and you could see when something goes off a lot easier. So I'm trying to really refine that ability to put in the blocks of tonal values versus the colors. That's why I'm kind of using basically just these grays and browns to kind of start to carve out individual sections of lights and darks. And all of a sudden it's bizarre because you don't put very much detail at all, and all of a sudden the image starts to pop off the canvas. Hey Lola, thanks so much. I am pleased to have that part of the drama of the robbery done. There is a new vlog up where I do a 6-month update. Those of you who followed my robbery drama and are interested in kind of what's going on, I did post that this morning. Although there's even new information because U-Haul has come back to me now. Late last night, they sent an email basically as a final warning to pay for the damage on the U-Haul. So I'm still fighting my insurance company on that, but I may end up being out of pocket for that. We'll see. Okay. We'll have to let this dry a little bit, or we're going to be just painting wet on wet. Yeah, the bizarre or the random kind of brush work makes it look like that, doesn't it? We'll see if I can salvage something out of this. If not, I'll learn a very good lesson, won't I? But I have a feeling we can. Again, I was sitting here thinking, oh, I wish I had a hair dryer to dry this quickly. Remember when I used to complain constantly about it drying too fast when I first started? Now I'm like, dry faster. In this part, I'm kind of just squinting my eyes to see, again, the big blocks of brightness, or where I want the big blocks of brightness to be. I want this to be the brightest part, but this is kind of going to be secondary. So maybe we raise it up a little bit just to see how that plays. Bring the value up a little bit. I want really bright up here. So let me see if I can do that. And then there, and then it's bright, but it goes back into the background. Wonder if I can turn this a little bit so it's a little more direct on. All right, let me while this is drying, I'm going to go back to the dark side a little bit and really clarify where I want this shadow to be. I want a lot of this to recede into the shadow, so I'm just going to put that in there. And slowly the composition will come together. So all those areas of light that we see, because obviously this photo was taken during the daytime, we're going to just push back into shadow. It's going to be like this was, because then all we would have to do is do a very subtle suggestions of the needles in the background, because they're not going to be catching a lot of light. So most all of that will be in the background. So let me turn off the light. That might help you see kind of how it's coming together. I think the main composition is kind of I'm going to start drawing some shapes in here just so I can kind of, I want that pine cone right there. And I'm making these all dark because if I get the basic shapes right, then I can come in and put color on top of them. to suggest shape. Now I'm just taking wet paint off, so I need to give it some space. Messy, but this is what I thought would be the challenge of this painting. Like I said at the beginning, there's nowhere to go to nowhere to go to move much around the canvas, and it's a small canvas, so that's even more challenging. think I'll... Not sure this technique is working. May have been easier if I just did the whole thing in dark and started something else, but we'll see. We will see how it works. I want to take... I want to do a layer of this dark color over the background. And hey, Richie, some of us can barely draw. Don't get me started on hands. That's kind. Thank you. Hope you guys are doing well. Okay. Let's do a little shadow work in the background. Get a couple of coats of this dark background in. Starts to really give some dimension for the painting. Let's see. If y'all remember that one painting I did of the flowers that were kind of the purple red flowers in that picture, this is a very similar, technique-wise, is a very similar painting. What is going to make this painting work or not is going to be the darkness of the shadows around the colors, because remember, all those flowers were basically magenta purple flowers, where here we have basically greens. And so it's like, how do we create that illusion there? Okay, now we kind of have a good background. I'll have to do a couple more layers on the background because it's showing right through. But what we can start doing, I think, is putting some color in now. Using the color to, again, further define our value layers. So I'm going to do a dark phthalo green as well as a sap green. Let's put a little bit of, I'm going to rotate this around again so you can see the phthalo green, sap green, and a little bit of raw sienna, which is kind of a reddish brown, with that raw umber and the burnt umber. We should have a good, okay, let me see here. If we take that raw umber and the phthalo green, we should get a really dark green, greenish brown. This is where we want to start putting our shadows in. The top layers. This is going to be our dark shadow color when we add the actual color. So we want to put this in these sections. May have to wait again but a good thing we can do is put it back here. Remember when I said in the shadows, then we just have to put the suggestions of these things. We won't need very much more than just this. I mean, we'll put some more background color, but we won't need much more because all we'll need is the suggestion of some shape back there. Again, because the light is not going to grab it very much. Now what I'm trying to figure out back here is what is the darkest color, kind of brownish color, that I can take back there that can still be seen. So if I take it into the background, what can I, oh, these lights. I don't know how to work this so that it displays for you all. Taking a little brown. I just put a little raw sienna and burnt sienna on this. I'm just doing a few spots that I hope will render as a I think it's almost too bright. As just a little bit of pinecone needle action back here. Yeah, that's coming out really bright, isn't it? It's funny because it's this dark down here. It's about as dark as it can go, but it's still rendering really light. I have to remember that this will dry darker than it looks. I just now thought to start taking progress photos. I always forget. I say that every week, and I always forget every week. We'll just start to put some general shape in here. Then we can think now on a all of these layers will, over time, add to three-dimensional view of this. It'll start to pop out. So now let's take some green, some sap green, some of this brown, this light brown. Let's see what kind of color we can come up with. Now it's just going to take patience to get, because like I said, I don't know exactly what I'm doing. So it's kind of trial and error. So let's mix a different green. This is kind of a lighter green. It's hard to get really thin needles. I probably need a more precise brush for this kind of, but we start to draw the suggestion of it. So doesn't take much to suggest some needles. Thanks. That's what I'm hoping for, that it kind of, in the end, the hard thing is because there's so many like greens, I don't want it just to like all mush together, you know? I really want to figure out how to create some foreground areas. And I think that's going to be specifically in the highlighting um, and the detail work. So let's take a little of this. I'm going to take some yellow ochre, which is pretty yellow, but it's not yellow yet. Just need a little bit of this to do the tone it down a little bit with the green. Okay, let me if we add some, whoops, some highlight to individual, a few individual put a highlight on a few individual needles, then we start to really see what's going on here and things pop out from the back. So we'll do some kind of bright green. with just a few brush strokes over here, I put a little more brown into this with the green, and a few brush strokes, all of a sudden you can put things into the background or draw them forward. So this is kind of the foreground, midground, and complete background. So up here we do want a little bit of highlights, but we don't want near as much detail. And so I'm just putting a few random strokes, and I added more brown to diffuse the green so that it even sinks further into the background. But we do want a few of those spots to stand out, because the light will catch a little bit. So notice the pine cones all pretty much stand out the same. So we have to do some more highlight. I like how this one is up here. There, if I turn the light away, you can kind of see how it is. But notice how they're all pretty much in the background there. So we need to add some more detail work to this one to really pop it forward. So that's what we're going to need to do. This is such a challenge of control, because the tendency is going to be to want to add. Our eye wants to see so many highlights, and we want to put all of them in. And the truth is they're just not all there, or they shouldn't be all there for a successful painting. The same thing that makes a successful painting does not always, or that makes a successful photo, does not always make a successful painting. So that's something to think about. The thing that makes something render well as a painting does not always render the right way as a, or in a photo, the things that are in the photo. So I'm mixing this kind of reddish brown here to see how that does, because I really like the red that's in the reference photo. There, that brings us a little bit forward. We can put a little bit of this color back here, but again, we don't want to go too much because it'll pop right forward. Then if we take a little bit of white put that in there. Becomes this really bright color. Then we can put just the highest highlights. Where do we really see this? It's on the furthest, most aggressive edges of this pine cone. Now it looks really white there, but there we tone it down a little bit, and maybe we need to do even a little more. Maybe it's a little too bright, but gives us we can use the same color and just dab it. The more smeared it is in the back, the better. Dad wants to know if you'll be adding the snow. No, I'm not going to put, because I couldn't tell in the reference photo if that's snow or if it's just the sky in the background. And what I was saying about making a successful painting versus a successful photo, our eye, when the camera takes a picture, our eye sees all of the things all at once. So our eye can distinguish the foreground from the background. But in a painting, I specifically want to tell the viewer of the painting, this is the foreground. This is what I want you to focus on. And so if I add really light colors peeking through back there, the eye is going to go to those bright colors. And this is all in comparison. This won't stand out as much. The only reason this stands out is because it's right next to this dark color and the light color. That's what makes successful, the painting successful. Let me show you. I forgot I had it. I thought it was downstairs, but let me show you kind of the other. Well, sorry, my microphone cord is all wrapped around down here. So let me grab my, if I can reach, a couple of examples from recent weeks. So let me do, come back. Okay, I'm going to back you all up just for a quick classroom minute. Okay. Hope that's okay. So, whoops. I talked about this painting. The reason it works is because of the dark shadows here that line up with the bright pinks. The reason the bright pinks stand out is not because of the bright pinks, but it's because it's next to the dark shadows, if that makes sense. The same is true. A couple weeks ago, we did the Scottish Highlands. The reason that this works so well is because of the dark shadows here. So if I mute these dark shadows, or if I put highlights on these rocks that were the same as back here or down here, then all of this would look more two-dimensional. If I use this color to highlight all the rocks up here, even if it looked that way in the painting, in the photo, then this and this would look like it's all one plane, if that makes sense. So that's one of the reasons that I'm not going to put the snow in, or the sky, whatever. I can't really tell because it's not completely in focus. Um, I could put some snow on the boughs and bring them to the front, but I really want this pine cone, basically this right here, to be the. Let me move you back in. I really want this to be what draws you into the painting. I want that to be, and then the rest to kind of fade in the background. It's there, you can tell what it is, but so that's a long question, or that's a long explanation to say no, I'm not adding the snow, at least not in this painting. And a more skilled artist than I perhaps could do it. But yeah, not this artist at this skill level. So we'll see. Now let me step back. I can smell the pine in this painting. Thanks. That's what we're going for. So it evokes a feeling, an experience, some nostalgia. For me, this kind of a scene just really makes me think of the mountains right here. I was hiking the other day. I hiked like 13 miles the other day, or probably 8 to 10, but my legs were tired today. On the trail, I just kept going from one trailhead almost to the other. All through the forests, and now that the leaves have fallen, the deciduous trees are the only, the needled trees are all that's there, and you can see you can see them so bright and or so spectacular. And so that's kind of what this is not working. I need to darken that up. It is too green. Too much blue in that green. Stands out way too much. But that's what this means to me, or that's what it feels like. Those hiking moments. Here I'm just going in and putting some dark green and brown around these highlights just to bring them even more forward. Because if you put dark, that's one big mistake I think I made when I started. And I've heard that a lot of new painters, and I probably still do it, new painters go in too early with the bright colors, because we're looking at, the highlights and we see, oh, there's a big, that's really bright. That's easy to see. But the darker spots are almost more important than the light spots. By tucking in the dark spots in here, all of a sudden there's shape in these blocks of other colors. Just by putting this shadow, this shadow, this shadow in, all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's a shape there. There's something there. So that's what I want to emphasize some of these. Putting some green and blue back into it. Let's see, where can we... Oh, there's some real dark spots. We may get this one pretty much done in 2 hours. There may not be a whole lot to go back and do. I'm going to take a progress photo right now. There we go. Let's see if we can darken some of this. There's some. Might be too, yeah, that's too blue. Let's just take it back out. Yeah, these, I guess, what would we call them? Lowlights are as or more important than the highlights. Because when you do these, then the highlights, you don't need as many, you don't need as much. And it really, I think I want to go back and into the green. Let's see if I can. My plate's getting a little full, literally. So let me take some green. And some of that yellow. Put it over there. Take a little of this brown. Mixing up this highlight again. And let's see if we can mix it up a little more runny maybe. Thanks, Aunt Susie. I am looking forward to seeing you in less than a week. Thanks for popping in and the kind encouragement. All right, I think I better step away from this bad boy before I overdo it. But I think it was successful for what I wanted to do. I really wanted to push myself to bring this to the foreground and figure out how to make that background, and I think I did it. I could probably do, well, maybe just, I'm like, oh, I could just do a little more. Maybe, let me find, do I have this? It's that red. I don't know. No, that ends up being that pink color. That's not what I want. I want the raw sienna that's undiluted red. Kind of. Let's see. Let's see what we can do. Just, I want to do just a little more on the, this is hard to see because it's got a glare in it. I want to do a little more on the, see if I can do a little more detail on that front pine cone because that's what's gonna sell it. Yeah. There we go. It's almost too much, but if we take a little blue, little green, Yep. Okay, I'm not going to touch it. No more. All right, I am pleased. Let me step back from this a little bit. Set my chair back. All right. Let me take a few pictures, y'all. I really am. I may do a little more detail work at a separate sitting just because the it's really good for the it's really good for my paint to dry on this, and so that sometimes the highlights that seem really bright in this, we're getting a little too much light, and then my other light is, my overhead light is glaring. So yeah, we get, sorry, the highlights will diffuse a little bit as the thing dries, and so I'll probably want to come back to it and maybe add some of those highlights back in, because as it dries it'll become more dull, but that also helps once it's varnished. That brings back some of that life to the yeah, to the painting. So I'm pleased with how it turned out. Let me hold it up so you all can see kind of close up a little bit better without the glare, so you can see a little bit of the detail work. But I'm pleased with how it turned out. I think it's a really pretty one. Hey, Bob G, so glad to have you. Even a little bit late. But yeah, this was a fun one tonight, and definitely, for sure, we'll be thinking of spring as we go into December and the temperatures start to drop. And I'm just thrilled to get this far into the year and have as little snow as we've had. We had one big kind of snowfall that was like 12-ish inches, but it was so warm it got cleared within a day or two, and then melted pretty quick. But I'm sure when the cold weather sets in, it will be a different story up here. But this was a fun one. As I said, the vlog, there's a new vlog out. If you're interested in that, please go ahead and check that out. It's an update on the robbery. Keeping my fingers crossed that I can get my insurance to pay this damage to the U-Haul. I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to, and that'll be a big bill if not, but I'm working on that. And otherwise, everything's starting to really get wrapped up here 6 months after the robbery. Next week I will be, or this weekend I will be out of town. I don't believe I'll be back in time, or I'll just be getting back in time for the live stream next week. So if it doesn't work Monday night, I may bump it to Tuesday, but I'll post on Instagram stories and my Facebook stories, for those of you who dial in from Facebook, but keep an eye out for that. I may just jump in the next Monday, so we may not do next Monday, just because I'll be have been traveling all day. So yeah, that's what's coming up. If you don't follow already on Instagram, be sure to do that. That's where I do try to post these progress photos, and I post progress photos of paintings that I do throughout the week. So I'm excited for 2022 and to continue to push my skill as a painter. It's exciting to see the progress and the growth over the months, and so I'm excited to jump into the new year, and I'm excited to have all of you along. Thank you again for joining me this evening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you on the next video. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening.